Right, we are live. Hopefully this is all working. I have just been tampering with this. I found that there was no countdown program. For some reason it's just disappeared completely. And other than that, we're all good. We're all working. So we've got Patrick with me tonight, which is wonderful. My partner in crime for the doubles tournament.
Good evening to you all.
And we've been discussing stuff earlier on today, didn't we, Patrick? We had a good, maybe an hour or something where we were talking about what we can do.
Yes, we had to talk about our doubles tournament lists.
Yes, but I think we've got a good idea now. I know at least what I need to get done, and it is sitting next to me like a giant hoard. And yeah, I've got to get on with it. I was actually saying to Phil, no, I said to Rachel yesterday and Phil, that if I didn't have an army to prepare in time for March, I would try and learn as much German as possible so that I could converse with you without anybody knowing what we were talking about. But I don't think I'm going to have time to do the army as well as learn German, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Two things I want to say. First of all, we've got two mini announcements. Well, not announcements, but shout out. So one of them is for Kablams. He is unfortunately in the hospital with his family. His daughter's not very well again, so I just wanted to shout out and say I hope everything gets better for you, Kablams. And you'll be back at home making videos soon and working on hobby. So that was the first one. And then we've also got Tom Wilson. And I don't know if he's going to make the chat or not, but he's been watching the show since the beginning and messaged me the other day apologising because he couldn't make the live shows because he's in hospital and he's been in hospital for a while and he's still got a long time to go. So again, hope you get better, Tom. And don't worry about not making the live shows. They're on YouTube. They record. You can always watch them whenever you feel like it. And I think you said you were going to get on with your wood elves as soon as you get back. So hopefully both of you will be back in the hobby as soon as possible. So we'll go through the chat. I'm just going to see who's here. And then we've got one big topic that I want to talk about. And anything you want to bring up as well, Patrick, we can go through as well. So we have Marty Milligan at the top of this. I haven't actually looked through any of this, but hey Marty. Marty's just made the my magic mix of medium and Norn oil and Agrex. So it's nice that somebody else has now got a magic mix to use when it comes to painting. Looks like Phil was here early as well, had to go out, so he's going to miss the show. Ralph, working on his prosecutors. Johnsonator, welcome Johnsonator. Tom Wilson is here. Hey everyone, just popped in to say hi, as I'll probably miss the show. Okay, maybe he'll miss the show, but at least he said hi. Right, there's a lot of chat, so we'll see. Oh no, it's skipped. It's skipped. Billy Lynch. And Rower as well. Welcome, Rower. Kablams is here as well. Welcome, Kablams. Fella Hate. And Kablams has found a quiet corner and the hospital Wi-Fi seems to be holding up. That's good. Elster Nation as well. And I believe Elster Nation did have a chill and chat before this one. I wasn't able to go on it, unfortunately. So I'll have to catch up on that one later. Johnny Rockstar is here as well. Guten Abend. Abend? What does that mean?
Just good evening.
Ah, okay. I'm glad you can converse, so it's great. Retep 1001. Okay, so not a huge crowd again. It's 6 o'clock on a Saturday. I think I might try and still do the Saturday ones a little bit earlier because it means I can continue to do the weekend shows, but also spend time with Rachel and whatever else we're doing on a Saturday evening. So we've got to keep the balance and compromise as much as possible. Hopeless Brit is here as well, and all is dust. All is not dust, all is Zangors. Okay, let's start stuff then. So the topic of, or the title of this show is, Are New Releases Ruining the Game? And I should have changed it to Saturday night with Sam and Patrick, but I haven't, so I apologise. We'll change it later. We'll change it after the show. It's pronounced Arbent, Sam. Guten Abend. Is that right?
Sounds perfect.
I'm not very good at speaking German. Or any other language, or even English at times. It's quite difficult. But we'll do our best. Johnny Rockstar, no. I'm confused. And the Orc Boys is here as well. Welcome, the Orc Boys. Right, so, I mean, you touched on this briefly when we were talking about our lists earlier, Patrick, in the death the upcoming death rules are quite powerful, aren't they?
Yes, they are. At least what we have been seen so far, it's horrible. They have a lot of new heavy magic spells that can kill you and will help to either heal their characters or bring models back to their units.
Yeah.
I think that will shift the meta a lot to the favor of death.
Yeah, and I think we'll start seeing a lot of death armies again everywhere. And
well, it's not that I wouldn't have death units already waiting to be assembled.
No, isn't it? I mean, you've got Tzeentch. Tzeentch is the other one that's quite powerful in terms of an army, one that's quite heavily
yes
at the tournament.
But at the moment, I would say death will be way better because they have strong offense magic and they have magic that will raise their troops back to life and healing their characters too. And there is at least one magic item that will protect them against wounds from shooting. I think that's a huge benefit.
Yeah. And you're saying, like, bringing things back to life. Is it more healing, or are you going to be paying for this out of the...
No, it's just healing.
Right,
to
so
bring dead models back for a unit.
Yeah, so there's no cost to this in match play. It's not like you have to keep points aside to reinforce units. So they've kind of done the fix for death, because in the past it was more that you had to pay for those extra units that you would summon, so it was a choice between flexibility of summoning what you want, or you just didn't have a huge portion of death abilities.
I'm not sure when you will release the battle between Steven and me. He played his death unit.
Without spoilers.
And he had a zombie unit.
Yeah.
And this zombie unit was huge. It took me quite a while to choose through it. And if you get now the new spells, and there was an example written that you would get maybe 3d3 models back in a turn.
Yeah. It's too much to kill. A lot of armies can't necessarily... I mean, we were looking at the Ungor Raiders, but choosing between whether I bring Ungor Raiders or Gors, just a flat unit of Gors. And I think the price difference was either... in points, it was either like 30 Gors for the price of 20 Raiders or something like that. And the Raiders, on paper, a unit of 10 would probably do 1 to 2 damage per turn with their shots. And it's like 1 to 2 damage per turn with a 10-man unit. That's not going to chip at anything. Even a 20-man unit, you might get 5 damage max, out of that unit. Zombies and, a lot of death units will just shrug that off and keep walking forwards and just surround any unit and take them out. So it's going to be very difficult for certain armies to actually put out the damage to actually kill anything that's in there. So there won't be anything to die.
On the other hand, I think it's very thematical that huge hordes of undeads are running over the field.
Oh, yeah.
And whenever something dies, it comes back.
They've nailed it. It's just whether the balance is there or whether we're going to have to wait for another General's Handbook, towards the end of the year. Are they basically going to be the top army until General's Handbook comes out?
Well, I think they said there would be 2 weeks after release, the first FAQ for it, and at least once they will do a huge FAQ. And the next General Handbook will be out, I think it was August, September. There might be some adjustment to the point values. That time, they will be horrible to play against.
And then you've got to adjust it all again. But I suppose it's better to have the adjustments in there. I'm wondering now more than ever if the playtesting is that period between when they're released and when they just do the fix later on in the year. Rather than doing the year or 2 years of playtesting an army, seeing if it works within a rule set and then releasing it. It's more of we're going to release what we think is going to be good, let you playtest it, and then you guys can break it, and then we'll fix it afterwards. Which in a way, it changes it.
Yeah, I think Ralph said it on Phil's show that he, for example, prefers the narrative or thematic play, not the matched play. So for that kind of play, I think it doesn't matter.
No.
But if you like to play match play, or if you just go to a store and find someone to play, the easiest way is matched play, because otherwise you might discuss with your other player maybe an hour what is to take or not to take. And the points value give you some kind of a feeling it's equal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what we were discussing again last night with you need match play really to make as much of a balance as possible between two armies, because even if you wanted to try and have a fun game with friends, using open play, it's not always as easy as you'd think it would be, because sometimes you don't know what your units can do. You don't evaluate your army that much. You just take what you want, and then you end up absolutely stomping your friend or getting trashed within a turn, and that's through no fault of your own, but it's just because you don't know the balance.
Yeah, I think that is also something we discussed this afternoon. For example, there are spells that can bring in new units, like Chaos Barns. In match play, you would have to pay for it. But if you play a friendly match, well, you could bring during the game maybe 10 or 15 of the Chaos Spawns. And I think that's something that will shift the balance.
Yeah.
But if both agree on it and are expecting it to happen, it's still a lot of fun.
Yes. Yeah. I think the big thing for me is this show isn't... It's more about the competitiveness, because now we're looking at tournaments. We're looking at a little bit more of the competitive side of the game, rather than just turn up and have a bit of fun. And with the videos that we do, it's more... We'll try and look at as balanced a list as possible. We won't try and make it so that we take filthy armies versus non-filthy armies. It will either be it will try to be as balanced as possible so that the game could go either way. And that's not what you do at a tournament. If you want to try and win the tournament, you take as nasty a list as possible. And that's not what we're doing with our list. I think Beastman was probably a bad choice to win it.
You have to think about it where we will go. It's not something like the Grand Tournament.
No.
The Grand Tournament is all about winning. But here you have still some soft points, like you get up to 10 points from your opponents. If they enjoy the play with you, you might get their votes. And it would be still 10 points. I think maybe you can get 50 points by winning every game. So it would be 20% more. Yeah.
I think if you win every game at the tournament, you're probably still going to win it overall, unless you like with what we've done. You've chosen a list which is actually a lot nicer and tamer than you could ever make, just so that you don't get people thinking you've brought a horrible list, which I think is a wise thing to do, because you don't like to take the most optimal list that will crush people. You want to have flexibility in the scenario that you play in. You also want the opponent to have a chance of winning with an army. And
I think Phil and Rachel's list will be all to stump their opponents.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking...
And conga lining.
Yeah, last night it was Phil trying to convince us all that Magma Joffs are a waste of points and that you should never put them into your army list. And I was like, no, they literally just throw mortal wounds over everything. And his excuse was that a lot of armies now have a save against mortal wounds. And I was like, well, yes, they have a save against mortal wounds, but you're still putting out a lot of mortal wounds. Oh, that's my brother ringing me. I have to ring him later. You still have to... I mean, being able to cause mortal wounds is not a bad thing at all. Magma Joffs are amazing. And I think his point was, if he wanted to take a really filthy list, he would just fill his army with Vulkite Berserkers in massive 30-man units and just push them forwards like the Death armies we're going to see. And that probably is the most optimal list. And he's not doing that, so he feels like it's still a weaker list. But I think it's still going to be powerful when you compare it to... like if you did High Elves, if you picked the Phoenix faction, I can't remember the name, but you've only got a few things available, like Phoenix Guard, Phoenixes, and I think that's about it.
Yes, or for example, the Eldritch Council. You
Yeah.
have the Swordmasters as battleline units. I think a mage on a dragon, the Loremaster, and another mage on a dragon. So there's not much choice. But I think on one of the last year's grand tournaments, a player did very well with it.
Did they do just that faction though, or did they mix it between different units
No,
from Order?
I think he just played an Eldritch Council.
Well, fair play to him. It's a very difficult way to win a grand tournament, but if somebody's done it, that's fair enough. I think it's the difficult side of it.
He didn't win, but
Oh.
at least he didn't
Okay.
score no points. I think even one of the games was with him broadcasted by Warhammer TV.
Okay. I think that's my main thing. Like if you are at the top of your game, if you go to the competitive scene and you know the ins and outs of a lot of, well, everything, the game, the scenarios, the armies and everything, if you take an army that doesn't necessarily have an updated book against something that does have an updated book, you're going to have an uphill struggle. And should you have the uphill struggle, or are you putting yourself at a negative handicap for any reason other than that you like the theme of the army that you've chosen?
Yes, but I think Games Workshop does there a good job, because you have, for the hardcore tournament players, the grand tournament. Then, for example, the doubles tournament where we will go is somewhere in the middle, and then they have their scenario weekends. They have their different kind of restrictions, and there is everything more about having fun.
I think I don't know, I can't really think about it. I was thinking of another mode of play, but it wouldn't really work in the hobby at all. But you've almost got pre-constructed armies, and it wouldn't work on the grand scheme of things, because the game is about building and crafting your army and making it into what you want to use. But almost like the army boxes, like the £50 starter sets that Games Workshop do. Maybe having Games Workshop create what they believe is very balanced armies that are in a £50 box set, and then having tournaments where you turn up with one of those box sets and you just play games with that. That way the balance is there. You play the army to the strengths and the weaknesses that is in that box, and it feels more like a balanced event sort of thing.
Yes, but did you watch Kitetsu's latest comment? Because Games Workshop will publish now a start collecting box for the, how are these dwarves flying?
Yep, Caradon Overlords.
Caradon Overlords. And the box does not even have a single battle line unit. So it's not a start collecting box, more like an attachment for an already existing force.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they would, I'm not saying using, that was an example, but say Games Workshop created tournament boxes. So a tournament box that was even £100. So you get an army in a box that's £100 that, let's say, for example, would be 1,000 points that Games Workshop would create for each army. And if you said, I want to go to a tournament, this specific event, you buy a £100 box and you play it out of the box.
I think these Christmas boxes had been close to that.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm not sure they are all at the same balance.
No.
Because the Disciple of Siege box had a Sangor Shaman, 3 Sangor Skyfires, 3 Sangor Enlightens, and I think 20 of each the Zangors and the Kairos Acolytes. So I'm not sure it's a really balanced list, for example, compared to the Death one, where you get one of the Mortarks, I think 2 of the Morghast, and some other undeads.
Yeah, I think if they were to do that, you'd have to balance it. And that's probably the inherent problem with it. The way that Games Workshop's done it now is if there's a problem, they'll fix it, which is that's the positive direction. So they'll do the FAQs and the General's Handbook, which fixes the points and things. So if they were to release an event box line, whatever it would be called, it might work for that event, but then a year later, all of the points and all of the rules may have changed, at which point it's going to be imbalanced again. But I was just thinking, like, could that potentially be a way to do an event where everything's as balanced as it can be for the event? And I think it wouldn't really work in miniature gaming unless it stayed as it was. So, no, that was just a thought, and deleted it straight away from my memory because it doesn't really work with miniatures. But let's go through the chat a little bit and see if there's any questions. If anybody does have any questions for Patrick or myself or anything in general, just put it in the chat and put @Wargamer Online and it will highlight it so I can see it a bit easier. Okay, so we got up to about there.
Sam, I see you can practice now lots of your German knowledge because Ralph and... who is it? Retap 1001 are talking German.
Excellent. I'll try and guess what they're saying then, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. And I'm not even going to copy paste it. I'm going to try it. See, Cyril said hi, Patrick. That was at the top.
Hello, Cyril.
And Ralph has put, while we are at it, bonsoir. I'm not even going to guess at that. Maybe that means hello as well, or good evening.
Yes.
There we go. Oh, and there's more. Is this French? I can't even pronounce French stuff. When we go to France, we used to go every year. We had some family friends. They were really nice. And whenever they were like having discussions or talking, or, we'd sit around the table and we'd just eat, because that's all we did when we went there. We'd have like 6 courses and it was cheese and bread with every single course. It was amazing. And when they were talking, it sounded like they were shouting at each other constantly. When they weren't, it sounded aggressive. Like, I don't know if it was just the family or if it was the French language or something, but everything sounded aggressive. And I was like, I don't know if you're being nice or angry. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, maybe I should have learned French. Is my greed for buying all the new stuff ruining my bank account? Should be the question, says Johnny Rockstar. That's the other thing. You've got to limit yourself to what you can actually get through as well. Orc Boys, new releases aren't ruining the game, just the Custodes. And I think that I'm thinking more of Age of Sigmar at the moment because of that's what I'm focusing on right now, Age of Sigmar over 40k. But I haven't even looked at the 40k armies and how the rules are working over there at the moment. We'll have to see. And Al Kirkham has joined as well. Welcome, Al. Finally got to a live chat. It's good to see your name pop up. Ralph is saying, yes, there is. Bring back dead models applies only to units with that keyword, if I'm not wrong. Oh, I think Kiblams, isn't there a new keyword, summonable? So there you go. That's a new rule they've probably put in. And they've got
I think they will add this keyword to lots of their troops. Like they changed, for example, the Monster of Chaos.
Yeah. That horrible rule. I don't know how to pronounce this person's name. It's the last bit says Rib, so we're going to go with that, Rib. I apologise. Who's put don't forget graveyard stuff. So with the death, you've also got the grave sites, I believe it's called, where you can just raise units from it across the table, and so you can capture objectives with that as well. So death's kind of got the all-encompassing take over the board, as well as raising units where you need them to capture objectives as well, which is going to be extremely powerful. Retep, do you get the -1 to the smite rolls? Is that rule already in use? As far as I'm aware, at least the tournaments are using it, Retep. Hopeless Brit is saying, I understand some people getting excited about the Custodes, but in all honesty, the content is rather flat. Small book, couple of units, and a named character. They were quite limited before. I mean, you had one troop unit, which was the Custodes. Then you had no character. You had a Land Raider, a Custodes Contemptor, and I think that was it. There wasn't much in terms of Custodes releases, but now you have got a lot more. You've got the Terminators, you've got the bikes, and you've got the character, and you've got the bodyguard units. I think it's doubled the amount of Custodes units that are available, and those models look amazing. I don't even know. I know the Terminators are like Custodes on steroids. They're really powerful, but yeah. And also no sign of sisters. They feel like they should have waited and done a better job, but the models have impressed me. Yeah, I think they could have done sisters and Custodes together. Maybe they've got a plan for that. Maybe they're just holding off on sisters until the end times, like the proper end times. Scott Bile is here. Hello, Sam and Patrick. I don't think no, the releases are ruining the game. To the contrary, I feel it's giving greater flexibility to run the army as you wish. And I think that is completely true. I think playing a new army, you have a lot more choice. And I think the problem is they just need to get every army that's available up to the same level as that. So bringing out High Elves with as many options as Death has got to create an army. Bringing out Brayherd, Beastmen, with as many options to create an army that's flexible, that's variable, rather than just being able to play almost one or two lists. I think that's the way that they need to go with it. And it looks like they are doing it. They just need to speed it up.
I think as soon as they will bring a battle tome for your Brayhards or the other factions from it, it will be better, because you have now just one option, and some don't of them doesn't even have access to their own artifacts or battle traits.
Yeah, and I'm almost wondering whether some armies are going to disappear because of what they updated some in General's Handbook. I really wouldn't be surprised if they removed Brayherd and Warherds from the range, because Tomb Kings and Bretonnians was a much bigger range. They had a lot more choice, and I think they removed them. And the speculation around that was that they were obviously difficult to copyright because of the Egyptian and the medieval knight themes. It's very difficult to copyright that. I think Tzeentch has kind of almost taken the Beastmen and encompassed them into the Tzeentch range now. It's part of theirs.
Yes, the Zangars are there. Zangars 2.0.
Yeah, and they're double the wounds, aren't they? They're properly infused with magic. So it's like Beastmen that have been made magical. So, I mean, maybe if they do get rid of Brayherd, I'll just use them as Zangors that aren't mutated and just be able to still use them. I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if they removed them from the range, is what I'm saying, because I think the big ones are going to get the updates, like your Death, your Order, your Chaos, and your...
I think it also will depend how old their kits are.
Yes.
I think the... how are these bull centaurs called?
Yeah,
Minotaurs? These had been quite new, but your Gors are more or less old.
Yeah, and the Chariot is one of the ugliest kits I've ever built. I've not even built it. I found an old... I showed you this earlier, Patrick, but I found this old Chaos Chariot lying around in the Wardrobe of Shame. And luckily, all the bits I needed were in here, so I've just put the Beastman crew from the Chariot that I bought on the back of this. The rest of the kit is a Chaos Chariot. It looks a lot nicer than the Beastman one, but...
Yeah, especially if you look at the boars. The boars are so old and clumsy.
The other option would have been using one of the Gore Grunters from the Iron Jaws and just chucking that in there. Oh, someone's donated.
But I think that option is very cool.
I've not seen that before. Michael McIver's just donated £10, so thank you very much, Michael. Appreciate it. I didn't see a message, though. Maybe there wasn't a message.
At least your programs for it's not running.
The program for the donations working.
Oh, now I see it. It's a delay.
Yeah, the countdown doesn't work. That was what I couldn't find. What were we saying? Yeah, and the Gore kits, the Bestie Gore kits, they're quite. They're not bad. They're not bad models. They look quite nice actually. They're just very static. There's only so many ways you can build them. They're definitely not on the same level as the new Zangor kits or some of the other models. I just think there's not enough in the range for them to keep them. And I wouldn't be surprised if they got rid of them. And I probably wouldn't care if they got rid of them, even though I've got a full army. I think what they're doing with Death and expanding it and giving you the options is the right way to go. I just think if there was less armies and they could focus on making a smaller amount of them much better and much more customizable, I think that would be a better way to go. At the minute, it feels like they've spread the themes and the factions far too wide. It's difficult to create big customizable armies with the amount of spread they've got with them at the moment.
Yes, they should be merging some more factions again.
Almost putting them back to how they were in 8th edition.
Yes.
So at least they've got their structure. They kind of get all of those elves and just kind of go bleh, put them all into one, and then you go and customize them again. They get all of Death and just go bleh, and then you customize them all again.
Well, I think they will bring for the higher something themed about Tyrion and Teclis.
They're going to be amazing.
Because both characters are no longer as War Scrolls in the Azure app. So
they changed. This is the one thing I thought was quite funny. They changed Prince Tyrion into effectively a bog standard prince, didn't they, or something? And they also did I think it was the Handmaiden of Elariel into the same stats as Tyrion. So if you have the Handmaiden of Elariel and Tyrion, the great warrior that he is, they are the same in game terms. It's almost laughable. It's like, yeah, they're not the same. But when they released those, because Tyrion's now blind, isn't he, in the story?
Yes.
And he has to see through Teclis. Teclis is going to be guiding Tyrion. I'm wondering if there's going to be there's so many different things in my mind that they could do with that. But imagine a model which was both of those on a base in some sort of dynamic pose with Teclis with not giant eyes, but glowing eyes or something. And Tyrion literally just a blind warrior.
Was that written in the Age of Sigmar books? Because I'm not exactly sure what happened at the end of the End Times.
It was after that, yeah. It was the start of Age of Sigmar, one of the first books that came out. I think Teclis and Tyrion both, but they woke up next to each other. Not in bed, not like that, but they just woke up and Tyrion was like, oh, I'm blind. And Teclis was like, oh, I can see for you. Don't worry, bro. And that was the last I remembered. That was my interpretation of it. But as far as I remember, Tyrion's blind and Teclis is his buddy that now guides him. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right.
What would be a twist of the story? Because in the old Warhammer world, Teclis was the
Feeble.
Crippled one, and Tyrion was a strong warrior.
I think that's why I liked it so much, and that's why I remembered it, because, like you say, he was the feeble, crippled character that needed the support. Towards the end of the End Times, Teclis kind of grew into his own character, where he'd gone from being the ugly duckling to being this badass who could just deal with anything, and he'd grown over the stories and over the campaign in the End Times. So I quite like that, and especially if he's now going to be in charge almost in Age of Sigmar, I kind of like that. I'm quite excited for High Elves as well. And I know you are. High Elves is your thing, 100%.
Yes.
Like, you'll just put a stop on everything and just do High Elf as soon as it's available.
I told already a store manager at another Games Workshop in Cologne, as soon as the High Elves will come out, I will just order at her stop all High Elves that will be published.
Yeah, just tell him, like, do not pre-order them for anybody. Everything that's in is mine. Just put it to one side, please. I mean, if I was that store manager, I would be ringing Games Workshop saying, can we have some more High Elves, please? Because we're going to sell out immediately and I need backups. Like, that would be the first phone call of the day. Just preparation for Patrick buying his army. Okay, let's keep going through the chat. We have the Orc Boy saying, I don't think the Custodians should get a codex have got a codex of their own and an army of their own, just a faction you could take with your army. And I think 40k in a way is going the similar way that Age of Sigmar did, because they split up all of the factions, and now with Age of Sigmar they're kind of putting them back together again. And I'm wondering if 40k is going exactly the same route, where they split them up and then they go, there isn't that much you can do with them, let's put them back together again. Let's see. Big Mac Danscore's here as well. Welcome, Big Mac. And Big Rich. Big Mac and Big Rich. I'm going to try and quickfire this as much as possible. Ralph saying the problem, GW focus shifts heavily towards the competitive scene, which ruins the fun for me. I think if it's done right, I don't think switching to a competitive scene is a bad thing, because in your group, if you're quite a casual group, you can still play casually, you can still include any sort of house rules, you can do what you want. I think having a good solid competitive rule set is a really good way and a good thing to achieve for. I think you just, and after that it's down to the players to either
and I think other big advantage of competitive play with tournaments is that these people look at the rules way different and find as mistakes or features, like Games Workshop might call it, that some things are broken or would not work as intended.
No, yeah, I completely agree with that. And that's what I was saying with the play testing almost. They let the competitive players that look at it in a different light find any loopholes that they can then fix later on down the line. And it
Yes,
saves
that's
them
true. And I
time.
think that was something they did with the General's Handbook. They invited some of the tournament players all over UK to give their feedback.
Yeah. That's perfect. Robbie Cohen trying to listen to this and Valrak at the same time. Wonder what Valrak's doing. Probably playing some games. If you want to go watch video games, go to Valrak's stream. But if you want to see Patrick, stay here. The Hopeless Brit. Play with like-minded people at your store makes things more about the fun. And I think that's the, yeah, exactly. The rules can be as competitive as possible. If you're playing with people who want the same experience, then you'll never go wrong. Red Cuffs has joined. Right. Oh, I think I've got to the German. Retap. Okay, sorry. Ich, dashed, mit. I put that. I is ish. So that's I. Dash. Is that don't? Patrick, help me.
One moment.
No. Help me. I don't.
At what time was it?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have time things on. Let me have a look.
Oh, okay. Let me see if
Maybe
I can find it.
Maybe I should have time. Oh, here we go. Timestamps. It was 6:17.
6:17. So, Reptet was talking about that he thought we would discuss 40k and Age of Sigmar because he talked with Ralph about 40k things. So I can't tell anything about 40k.
I mean, 40k new release. Like, I think it's Custodes. That's the big one that everyone's doing at the moment. A similar theme. I think you're going to see Custodes dominating. I think it's exactly the same as Age of Sigmar. They just need to probably reduce the amount of spread that they've got with the armies and do a good job with them. And I think maybe the Death Codex, the Death Army book, is going to be the standard that all Age of Sigmar armies should do. I'm not saying the Death release is a bad thing at all. All I'm thinking is every army should be treated in the same way and should have as much flexibility and as many options as that's going to get.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if something is new and shiny, and there are always players that will get just the new stuff. When I started with Warhammer, I just stick to my High Elves. Okay, High Elves is a bad example because they have been in nearly every edition very good.
Yes.
But in my point of view, it is not a good thing just to switch with every new army. Stick to it and learn to play it.
Yeah. And I think that's fine. As again, it's when you've only got so many choices, there's only so much you can do with it. With High Elves, throughout the releases, you've always had a lot of options. There was many different ways you could play the army. Whereas with some armies now, you buy a list and that's all you can do. You can't really tweak much. You can play it again and again, but it gets to the point where it gets boring if you just play the same thing over and over. You need variability. You need to play things in different ways sometimes to keep it fresh.
Yes, and I think that is with Age of Sigmar something that you will see if you play a 1,000 point game or a 2,000 point game. In a 1,000 point games, there are some options, but you can either go the one way or the other. But a mixture of, for example, just the best stuff is not possible in a 1,000 point list.
Mm-hmm.
Like we saw with my 2 or maybe 3 possible 1,000 points lists. At 1,000 points, you might have to drop something and get not all the benefits you might get at higher point games.
Yes. Yeah, you've got to pick and choose what you want, and sometimes you can't have all the combos. You can't have all the cake and eat it. You have to have a slice, and then have another slice later on down the line.
That's true.
12 Neve, greetings from Brooklyn, and happy Saturday, everyone. Happy Saturday indeed.
And Acharya Ahmed is online too.
Oh wow, okay. Let me just try and quickfire this then. Not very good at quickfiring today. Not very good at reading today. Kiblam, Sam looks great in 144p on my phone. It's probably because I'm really small and you can hardly see me. Ralph Hummel, hi elves, did I miss anything? Apart from the announcement that we have not seen the last of the elves with the Daughters of Cain.
No, Ralph, this was just a comment because I'm saving every month just a little bit of money to have enough money just to buy everything as soon as it's released.
Surreal at Patrick, saw your garden pond. If people think your armies are beautiful, they haven't seen anything. You've got a garden with a big pond in it.
Yeah, but it's not mine. It's from my mother and her garden. And my sister and I help her during the summertime at the weekends just to work there.
That's cool. I
hate garden work already as a small child.
Yeah, I mean, my garden isn't really much of a garden. It's where the dog goes to pee, and that's pretty much all we look at it is. I mean, one side of our next door neighbours, the fence panels have fallen down, and they just don't replace them. It's almost like, I don't know. It's just not great. We had our barbecue out there at one point. That's all we used it for, going out for a barbecue. It's just not really a garden. I just read your comment. It's my mother where I have to work like a slave. I hate garden work. Marty's saying Valrak has stocked up on Custodies. I watched his video today. Valrak's obsessed with Custodies, so I don't blame him. And the Valdor model looks incredible. I think it's £60, so it's quite expensive for one individual model, but the detail on it looks great, and it's Valdor. So if you play Custodies, you need Valdor basically. Fell Hate saying Dark Angels for life. Acharya saying hello my fellow nerd and nerdettes. Hi Sam, hi Patrick, welcome Acharya. I think you moved now. I hope you're settled in and you've got everything sorted. And I hope you're starting to build your army, because at the minute I'm ahead of you and that's not a good thing. Ralph is saying totally agree, stick with your army, but in AOS you need increasingly also to know what the other armies do, which was not so up to this point. I think that's quite fair. I was reminiscing about 8th edition fantasy last night, and in a way I missed some parts of 8th edition, but I absolutely understand why they got rid of it. I enjoyed the massed ranks, I enjoyed the army building and the flexibility and the stuff that you could tweak in and out. I enjoyed almost the scenarios were quite nice to be able to just charge across the battlefield with your flanking and wheel your units around and just have massive clashes between the two armies. And you didn't need to know the other armies' ins and outs, because you could do what you needed to do with your army and play it and work out what happens. The downside to it took too long to get an army built. It took too long to create your army because you needed maybe 120 models to actually play a game properly. Whereas now you can play a 30 model count army and have loads of fun, which is amazing. It wasn't as accessible for new players. There was a lot of rules. There was a big rule book that you needed to get through, and it was difficult to learn. And I think that's the downside with the old game.
Yes, I think that was also something Phil and I discussed on his Monday Musing, that Games Workshop did a great job with introducing Age of Sigmar on later the skirmish version, because when you enter the game with the skirmish version, you can see if you like the game, but need only a handful of models. And if you like it and would like to play larger games, there are the start collecting boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something they didn't offer for 8th edition Warhammer.
Yeah. I like both versions of the game. I don't think I'd ever play 8th edition again.
You don't even have any more models on square bases, I would say.
I don't. But I think the armies looked really good. And there's nothing stopping you from doing an Age of Sigmar army like that. But it just works very differently. I really liked the ranked units with, say, 40 or 50 models in it, with your command and your characters all at the front ready for battle. I quite enjoyed that. But practically, the game works a lot better as Age of Sigmar. The rules work a lot. The games are faster. It's easier to play. And I think those things contribute more to the enjoyability of the game than having a big unit that looks nice.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's strengths and weaknesses.
Even so, I enjoy having my high elves on square bases ranked up. I can see now that round bases give much more dynamic to the sculptors, that they can make models with better poses.
Yes, they look better in every way. Anything on a round base looks great. Sorry, Stewie has decided that drinking his water would be the best thing to do right now. It doesn't matter if I stream at 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Stewie starts drinking as soon as I'm live. He's just looking at me as well. Well, he's looking at me with one evil eye going, yeah, I know exactly what time it is. Thank you, Stewie. Anyway, Achaya, Chaos Space Marines. Oh, Dark Hint. Oh, don't wind him up, Achaya. Greetings. Oh, that's from Al. Achaya saying, knowing what other armies are capable of is why I like buying the War Scroll cards. Yes, and Achaya's new addiction is buying all of the War Scroll cards just to sit and look through, I think, more than anything. Kablams, your face is made up of about 6 pixels, Sam. Marty agrees, the back garden is a dog toilet. And Derpimus, hey, I didn't miss all of it. Derpimus, I feel like I have to get you in my Brayherd army somewhere. But I don't want to offend you, just because I know you're up in Scotland, and this is my Braveheart army. And we were all playing our theme tunes last night for what we were going to be playing at the tournament, and I really kind of want to put a mini speaker in my Gorgon so that I can just press it and it says, you can take our lives, but you'll never take our freedom. I want that to play every single time I put my Gorgon down on the table. I just think it's amazing, and that film is so cool. Apparently, Valdor is a Guilliman for Custodes, which is completely true. Kablam's got Prospero this week, so I have some custards to sell. I only got to build 2 Space Marine models from the box, though. That's a shame. You should take it to the hospital with you, Kablams. If you go back in, bring your models and just sit and build them. Achai is going to finish the move on Monday. Apparently 1 van was not enough. That's all the Warhammer you've got, Achai. You need a van for the Warhammer and a van for everything else. Barhammer, to satisfy that mass ranked battles itch, get into 9th age is a great community project. I don't think I've got enough time for 2, but I think you've looked at this, haven't you, Patrick?
Yes, but I think the main problem with the 9th age is it's something that comes from the tournament scene. And if you don't have either an independent store where you can play and meet other people, it's really hard to find players for it and get in it.
Yeah, that's true. Unless you're playing, like you say, if you've got a club that all commits to playing it, or you've got a group of friends that all want to play it, that's perfect. But otherwise,
in Germany, clubs are not very popular. Not like in the UK.
You have to start a club. You keep it underground if you have to, Patrick, but just create your own underground Warhammer club. And it has to be underground. You have to find a basement to play it in as well, just so you can say my underground.
But at least at my local Games Workshop store, I can still play Warhammer Fantasy.
Yes, and they're quite open with that. Even Warhammer World have said you can play any edition of their game anytime you want, which is nice of them and fair of them, to be fair. Fel Hate the Lion and Asriel are already best friends. Why is it always skipping on me? Just a Man 400 is saying, for a beginner trying to understand the other strategies for the other faction is crazy. I think that is, it's not even just limited to beginners. I mean, I've played enough games and looked at enough armies over the years. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I find it challenging sometimes when they bring out all of these new rules. I find it difficult to keep on top of all of them and keep on top of the FAQs and keep on top of all of the changes that happen. And like Patrick was telling me stuff that's in my FAQs that I haven't even seen. And it's almost like is there too many rules for me to keep on remembering and updating on?
Yeah, the problem is when we made our battle report, I made some mistakes about spells they changed. And that was when I started to reread everything about the published FAQs and so on. And I think a few days ago they published new ones.
It's just keeping on top of that. And I think it's difficult having them in. Well, one thing I was telling you about was that we've been playing Magic the Gathering, and I don't want to go into Magic the Gathering and all of that, but the one thing they do that works really well, I find, is with a card, with each individual card, they've got a website which lists everything, and if you click on it, it will tell you at the bottom all of the updates that have happened, or an explanation of how the card works, or any issues that may arise with it. So it tells you that on one page for that card, and I almost wish they did that for each unit. I know it's a lot of work for Games Workshop, but if they had armies, so if you click on the Games Workshop website and you click on an army, at the top it tells you all the changes that have happened to that army that are in place at that moment in time. Or if you click on a model, like say you click on a Gorgon, if you click on the Gorgon model on the website, at the bottom it tells you all of the changes, all of the FAQs that are relevant to this Gorgon, or it tells you any rules that you need to know for that Gorgon. And it could be on a separate website, they could do a rules website, or they could put it on their store and just have a bit at the bottom that tells you about each individual unit that you need to know. I don't know if that's an option, but just from looking and playing Magic the Gathering, it's such a quick way to keep on top of your units. And
I think that would be too much manpower for them to keep the updates running. I think maybe it will be a fan project that someone would offer that kind of service.
Even like you say, even the app's not up to date. Like the Azir app on my phone, the points for the Bestigors are correct. If you buy a unit of 30 of them, the points are correct. So it tells you get the General's Handbook reduction. On the iPad, the exact same app, I click on the list and it's been updated as well. I put the Bestigor unit in, I put 30 of them, and it still charges you the full amount. It doesn't give you the discount.
I know. That was why I asked you if your calculation was correct, because I didn't look at the General's Handbook to see that there would be a discount.
But it doesn't work on... I mean, that's the thing. Between an iPad and an iPhone app, the same app, they have different updates on them. So even just their own app isn't consistent. So I understand what you mean with saying it would be a lot of work to...
Yeah, I think one has to reinstall from time to time the app. Because I had the same problem, for example, with my Zangars. At one point, the Azure app showed for the Zangars only the rules of I think it's the Silver Tower Zangars, and they had not the same rules as the normal Age of Sigmar Zangars.
Yes. Yeah. And it's even the Iron Jaws, actually, they haven't updated. If you pick Iron Jaws as a faction on the Azure app, it doesn't even give you the artifacts, I don't think, yet. You can't even pick the artifacts, or you can't pick the command traits for the Iron Jaws, which is something that's in General's Handbook and it's still not updated. And they're quite open. They say just send us an email whenever you find a problem and we'll fix it. But to be honest, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered to find the email out and type in all the things that need changing. It's almost like, I just want to build my army list. I don't want to have to find all of the problems and send them away to fix.
So you see here, Emmett asked about the War Scroll builder that is now featured on the Games Workshop page. I think it's still a fan project. It's just featured by Games Workshop on their own site.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If there's people willing to do it and put the work in, I think they should just take as much help and as is available, really. Chai is saying, shut up, Stewie. Yes, Stewie, shut up. And he has shut up for the minute. Now he's gone to eating, because all he does is eat and drink. Ralph is saying, agreed, it is not easy to get into it, as it was pre-General's Handbook. 40 to 50 models a unit, sucked without movement trays, though, says the Permess. Yeah, and you need movement trays in 8th edition. You have to use movement trays. Slow down the game even more otherwise. Ralph saying, I understand why, but still it was a more relaxed gaming environment in general then, when it wasn't matched play. It was, but again, matched play brought a lot of people into Age of Sigmar who didn't necessarily know how to balance the armies or wanted some sort of structure. I think match play definitely brought more people in than it stopped people playing. In my opinion, anyway, I think match play was a great direction for Games Workshop to go with Age of Sigmar, and it's probably what saved it. When they didn't have match play, it wasn't doing as well as it is now. Scalability is always great, allowing people to come into the hobby where they feel most comfortable. 100% true. Stewie has a drinking problem. What's this? I don't just a man. I don't have a ton of friends trying to play. They are friendly and enjoy fresh blood. They can't wait for me to come back. And Derpamus is go to Warhammer World, book a table to run a Warhammer fantasy role-playing game campaign, a proper one lasting about a month of actual playing time. Yeah, just don't leave until you finish your game. I think they still have to stick to their opening hours. Acharya is saying, Patrick, Sam, do you think the regular updates and annual General's Handbooks will allow armies to mature and stop people wanting to jump onto the next new thing? You can answer that first.
Yes, I think that's a really good thing, but it will only work until they release a new army. The new General's Handbook that we got, I think it was September last year, it brought some changes, for example, for the Siege army. And by making the Sangor Skyfires more expensive, before I could have taken just more for cheaper. But they will make little adjustments and they get feedback from the tournament scene about it.
And I think I've said this a few times before, is the Games Workshop games as a whole, they never used to have these updates as often as they do now. So if you're used to playing Games Workshop games, if you had a really powerful army, you would rush out and buy everything that was powerful, and you would win for 2 or 3 years, or you'd have it was flavor of the month. Whatever was updated was really powerful. Now what they're doing is releasing stuff. It may be powerful, but in a few months' time, it will get tweaked. So you can't just go out and buy an army expecting it to stay like that for a year or 2 years or even 6 months. You have to go out and buy an army knowing that the theme of the army, the models, and everything that goes with it is what you want to play, on the basis that if they change the rules, would you be annoyed and would you not play that army? I think that's the way you should pick an army now, is not, is it filthy and will it win me games? That's not how you pick an army. You pick it based on will it match your play style? Do you like the look of the army, and will you enjoy playing and painting it? And that's how I would say is the best way to pick something now. I know that wasn't the question, but it kind of led into that. Package rules with all the units, maybe. That would work, and they have included rules into newer boxes, but the problem with that, Hopeless Brit, is if they update them, which they are doing quite regularly, those rules will be useless, or at least the majority of the rules will be useless. So I think having a physical rule set that they send out means that they can't adjust stuff as quickly as having a digital living rule book, effectively.
Well, I think the core rules are just the 4 pages. Funny enough, the FAQ is now already 8 pages.
Yes, yeah. EPUB and PDFs can be easily updated, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think they do it.
No. It could be done. It's the option is there, but it's still not being used yet. Okay, I've got to the bottom of the chat. That's pretty good. Just a man saying is very true. I am learning more from my losses, and you will learn more from your losses. Ralph says, I have just decided to stop buying new codexes and battle tomes and concentrate on my armies. If I feel like a new one, I will let myself guided by the visuals, which is, I completely agree with you, Ralph. That's the way to go for me. And he's also saying, yes, I remember we talked about it before. I am pretty dissatisfied with them not producing the updated products. Yeah, because Ralph's had that issue where he's bought the digital version, they've updated it, and then you don't have the updates in there. App being outdated or being slow to update is the reason I use third-party list builders. Yeah, and again, if those third-party list builders could work with Games Workshop to provide a service that Games Workshop can't always provide, then I don't see why it doesn't work hand in hand. The third-party people are going to be working on it anyway. Why doesn't Games Workshop just get them involved and employ them to effectively do the same job. If there's money in it, then there's got to be a reason to do it, I guess. Achai is saying, how's the army coming along, Patrick?
Yeah, we had this afternoon our discussion and looked what would work better together, especially for the possible 6 scenarios and what benefits we could get. And we even decided what our opponents would prefer to play against. Maybe we get some favorite game votes by that.
Yes, I mean, I was almost tempted to remove the Gorgon, wasn't I? And just have masses of Gors, in some sense. We haven't quite figured out the name for the Gorgon yet, but we will come up with one. I was debating on having 6, rolling a dice and deciding which one was going to be summoned each time I summon one, but I think that will get expensive and I don't need 6 Gorgons. Maybe I'll just give them different hats. Give them a different hat every time I release it from its cage. Okay, that's been pretty good. We're an hour dead on. We've gone over the topic. We've answered a load of questions. We've had a bunch of people come in and chat to us. We've had a donation from Michael McKeever. So again, thank you very much for that, Michael. I've had a good little chat with you earlier today as well, Patrick. If my head wasn't killing me and my eye wasn't about to explode from my head, I would probably be happy to do another hour. But I feel like I need to stop looking at a screen and go and lie down for a little bit. So I'm probably going to call it here. Leaving to watch the local ice hockey. We'll catch up on the rest of the show after. Thanks, guys. Well, that's it, Marty. Call the Gorgon Persephone? I don't know. So
Reaper pops in just at the end.
Yes. Hello, Reaper. It's nice to see you. It's been a while. I hope you're doing well. Right. And Marty's put bring back Mike. We've tried. He's not replying. I don't know where he is. I think he's in the Himalayas at the moment on a pilgrimage. We'll see. Right. Thank you very much, Patrick, for joining. It's been good.
Yes, thank you for having me. I wish you all a good evening.
Yes, it's nice to have you on, and you're more than welcome to join whenever you wish, because you bring a very good tactical aspect to our chats and knowledge, which you've definitely got amples of. And yeah, we'll get you on more often. Right, let me see if I can find these credits. Let me change this to studio mode. There we go. Ready? Okay, see you later, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Bye.